Windy too, temperatures around 11 to 13 Celsius. But some sunshine moving in after a wet morning, early afternoon across Northern Ireland here. Some scattered showers for Wales and the West Country, but wet across the Midlands, eastwards into East Anglia, the London area, seeing some outbreaks of rain in places too. And then through the early hours, the rain pushes out into the North Sea, and then the low pressure itself starts to move in closer. So we see bands of heavy showers pushing in across the west, some rumbles of thunder possible during the early hours. But it will keep temperatures up, a lot of cloud around, some strong winds developing, particularly in the southwest, the temperatures for most staying in double figures. So Monday, dominated by low pressure, we'll see outbreaks of heavy showery rain pushing north and eastwards, particularly across England and Wales. Best of the drier, sunnier weather across central and northern parts of mainland Scotland, but rain still affecting Orkney and Shetland, only slowly clearing here. Blustery winds, particularly along the south coast, some gales possible, and temperatures generally around 14 to 15 Celsius. See you soon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The entry-exit system, the so-called digital borders scheme. And the idea is that the European Union wants to know more about you. It wants to be absolutely sure that this is Dawn Neeson and this is her fingerprints and this is her facial biometric. So the first time you go to a European Union or wider Schengen area airport, that would include Norway, Switzerland, Iceland, you get in, you land, you then have to register your biometrics, fingerprints and face, and that gets tallied to your identity from your passport. And then that's just the start. You then go through the same old analog palaver where somebody comes along, has a look at your passport, checks you haven't spent too long there, gives you a stamp and off you go. And that's exactly why we're getting warnings from the travel industry that it could actually hold you up for 4 hours, which would take the edge off the start of your holiday.
Sounds quite similar, Simon, to what happens when you go to America, where they will sort of like ask you to do your fingerprints and sort of like, you know, stare into a camera lens type things. Is that quite similar?
That's all to do with it when you get an ESTA, that's the permit you have to apply for. But this, you don't need to prepare anything. So don't worry, people. Just get on the plane or indeed get in your car and drive to Dover or wherever and just basically do what you're told. Having said that, fingerprints are very last century. Talking to the brainy people who do biometrics, they say your facial biometrics are so good that you don't need fingerprints, you don't need iris scanning. We know from your beautiful face that that can only ever be Dawn Neeson.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. I'm going to be speaking to the Labour MP for Basingstoke, Luke Murphy. What does he make of the decision to ban Israeli football fans from Villa Park? And with Rachel Reeves promising further measures on tax in the budget, is Labour breaking a key manifesto pledge? Shadow Energy Secretary Claire Coutinho will be here. Make a note, Red Ed Miliband refuses to appear on the channel with me. What is the Conservatives' plan to get energy bills under control? And what's her reaction to a mega poll out this week that puts the Tories on just 7 seats? I'll also be joined by the business journalist and presenter Ian King. Can the people of Britain really withstand higher taxes that are set to come on November the 26th? And are the Chancellor's plans possible without massively slashing the welfare bill? Prince Andrew has relinquished all of his titles amid what he called the ongoing distraction caused by his association with Jeffrey Epstein. Author of Charles III, The Inside Story, and Daily Mail journalist Robert Hardman will be here to discuss the latest lurid headlines. And former Labour MP for Birmingham Perry Bar, Khaled Mahmood, will be here to discuss the Israeli football fans being banned from Villa Park. He was MP there for 23 years before being unseated by the pro-Gaza Independent MP that's pushing for that ban. Once again, it's another very busy 90 minutes to come, so do not even think of going anywhere. Before we get into the papers, I need to hold it together now because I want to pay tribute to a friend and mentor of mine, a great friend to GB News and a lot of the people that work here, the former editor of the Sunday Express, Martin Townsend. Now, he passed away on Friday after battling cancer for 18 months. He was a brilliant journalist. A lot of you will be familiar with his work because he campaigned tirelessly for Brexit as Sunday Express editor. He was a maverick, he was mercurial, he was the best boss you could ever work for. And I have to say that I would not be sitting here on GB News if it wasn't for the encouragement and the support of this great journalistic mentor to many. Not just me, but he helped to carve out the careers of so many successful journalists in Fleet Street. I know his mother-in-law Rita will be watching the show now because she loves GB News. He loved GB News. He was the newspaper reviewer for my very first show. And I just want to acknowledge the passing of a journalistic giant, but also a proper gentleman. Now, joining me now to discuss the Sunday front pages is the political editor of Times Radio, Anna Mihailova. Lovely to see you this morning, Anna. Thank you very much for coming in. Thank you. So, Prince Andrew, I mean, your old paper, The Mail on Sunday, has done a very good job on this morning. All the papers are covering it, but they've got a number of revelations. First of all, they've got the revelation that there was this deal done by Prince Andrew to try and smear Virginia Roberts-Giuffre, who was the, I suppose, most well-known victim of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. She claims that she had sex with Andrew at the age of 17. He denies that. There was the famous photograph with him with his arm around her. He told the Met to dig up dirt on Virginia in a bid to smear her when she came forward once again with these allegations. Yet more in the papers about how Epstein bankrolled Fergie, Sarah Ferguson. What do you make of it all?
Well, I think we're not surprised that he's given up his titles, is I think what a lot of people will say seeing this. And I wonder how much of that was, how much they knew this, what was coming down the line, how much that triggered it.
Yes.
So, I mean, there are some absolutely blockbuster revelations today in the Mail on Sunday. The leaning on the Met is huge.
I mean, the taxpayer-funded bodyguards, exactly. Somebody paid by you and I and others watching this and listening to this, then to kind of carry out a smear campaign on behalf of a disgraced Duke.
And he it's chilling as well because he passed on her personal details to them, asking them to investigate her. So once again, we come back to that point that if you're someone trying to take on someone powerful, make a complaint against them, if you're a victim of rape or, or assault or anything else, you look at this and it just puts you off. You don't, you know, it's absolutely appalling what she went through.
Also, it's the revelation that both Andrew and Sarah sort of said that they had cut off all contact with Epstein, only for emails to emerge of them basically continuing to suck up to this guy, even after he's come out of prison, which is extraordinary. I must say that we have approached the Met for a comment about the front page story of the Mail on Sunday. It's right that he's lost his titles, isn't it?
It's right he's lost his titles. We've had MPs calling for that for a while now, for years. But the further question is, what about Royal Lodge? He's still in Royal Lodge. Sarah Ferguson is still in Royal Lodge with him.
Despite them divorcing in 1996.
I'm sure you know much more about that dynamic than most people.
Well, the mind boggles slightly that she's still there with him and that they're both rolling around in a 30-room house. He'll say, well, look, I paid for the lease in good Grace. It was for 75 years. There's no legal way of turfing me out. Although the landlord ultimately is his brother, the king, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and also for Sarah Ferguson, there's a revelation in the Mail on Sunday saying that she and her daughters were some of the first people to visit Epstein after he was released from prison, according to Epstein. So that's also coming out of the US.
I know.
And there's a quote from a royal expert today saying that this is all just the tip of the iceberg. So that is why I think it's not surprising.
There's more to come out.
Well, apparently, and that's why it is absolutely not surprising that the king has taken these steps privately and is apparently, reportedly pushing for more as well, and why William is taking such a firm stance.
Indeed. Let's go from one king to the king of New Labour, Tony Blair. Now, he's sticking his oar in on two fronts, Anna.
Yes. So we have it's all linked to a book.
There's always a book at the heart of these revelations. Yep.
A new book is about to come out, and Tony Blair has given some interviews to it and made some, let's say, blockbuster interventions.
Right.
He's not held back, and he has said that, firstly, income tax, the top rate should be cut, so the 40% rate. He's saying to encourage growth and investment, that's what you should do. Which is obviously diametrically opposed to Labour policy and Rachel Reeves's direction that we're expecting in the budget.
Yes, I wonder whether she'll heed his advice. I think probably not.
I don't think I'd bet on it.
No, I'm going to be speaking to the business reporter, Ian King, about all that later, so we can find out which of your taxes are going to go up. Carry on.
So there's that, and then he's also saying that people coming into the UK on small boats should not be allowed to claim asylum, full stop.
That's a Kemi Badenoch policy.
Which is a Kemi Badenoch policy. It's quite a blue Labour approach as well, which is very interesting because a lot of the dynamic within government, as you know, is this tension between blue Labour and new Labour, so the Blairites, the old Blairites, and the more progressive, not progressive, but, you know, this new blue Labour, which is led by Shabana Mahmood right now in Cabinet. Which is much tougher on migration. So it's very interesting to see Tony Blair, who oversaw a lot of the liberalisations that have led to the situation we're in, suddenly come out on this.
He was very happy about mass migration back in the day, and now he's changed his tune. I wonder whether they're listening to him, though.
It sounds like Tony Blair's... He's definitely influential within government, but it sounds like he's not personally influential with Keir Starmer.
No, I don't think he's got that much of a bond with him personally, but he does, of course, with some of the figures around him. Previously, Peter Mandelson, very close to Jonathan Powell, who's now in hot water over the China spying scandal. Let's move on to that because it's the front page of the Sunday Times. Now, they've got a story suggesting that, I think it's Christopher Cash, not Berry. Oh, no, it's Christopher Berry. He was found with $4,000. These are the two people, Christopher Cash, Christopher Berry, both accused of spying. They deny the allegations. The case hasn't gone to trial because it's collapsed. Huge row in the week about why it's collapsed. It's all been pinned on this man, Matthew Collins, who's the Deputy National Security Advisor, who appears to have taken this decision all by himself. The Prime Minister is challenged at Prime Minister's questions by Kemi Badenoch. Are you seriously suggesting that this one man, who's the Deputy National Security Advisor, he's not even the National Security Advisor, which is Jonathan Powell, has done this all by himself? The Prime Minister replies yes. Kemi Badenoch says she thinks he's lying. I mean, where could this actually lead if he has been found to have misled the Commons?
Well, we've got two parliamentary investigations that have been launched, and they will have power to separately question both Matthew Collins, Jonathan Powell, and then on the other side, the CPS. So I think there are huge questions for the CPS of why, off the back of Matthew Collins' statements, they didn't prosecute. But as we've got these stories coming out this morning, there are just further concerns that this government line that ministers had no input and had absolutely nothing to do with any of it just doesn't ring true to a lot of people. So a lot of, especially Conservative critics, but also just other China skeptics and people who've been warning about this for so long now, they're saying the government has to answer more questions on this and clarify more about some of these meetings that they finally admitted took place.
Yes, they had initially denied the meeting took place, then they said it took place, but they didn't discuss the evidence. We've now seen Collins' witness statement, which includes a chunk from the Labour manifesto. Would an official have put that in without political influence? Do you agree this is still going to run?
I think it's going to run, but I do think Keir Starmer is broadly off the hook on it for now, to be honest.
Really?
Because beyond these revelations, there aren't. I think the government will be able to say, well, we're waiting for these 2 investigations to conclude.
And yes, it's a good tactic, isn't it? We've got an investigation. It's like carrying out a review. We're going to get Louise Casey to carry out a review, and then we can kick the can down the road till 2028. Let's move on to just one particular aspect of the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans being banned from Villa Park, because this is the revelation that the man who provided a report which seemed to influence the West Midlands police in suggesting that these Israeli fans shouldn't attend this match is linked to Hezbollah, and I can see a photograph of the guy with an AK-47, Anna.
Yes, so the Mail on Sunday says that that decision was partly based on a report, on a dossier, which could have eventually influenced the police and was co-authored by this gentleman who, has a long history of anti-Israel positions. I think even with this aside, Camilla, even on the day the ban happened, we had politicians, we had MPs praising it, saying, oh, this is all about fan safety.
Yes.
But their own petition that called for it had as the #1 reason they wanted the ban to take place all about Gaza and the geopolitics.
Yeah, of course.
So
it's
this
idea, the Zara Sultana
Exactly.
tweet is the telling one, which is, I don't want any Israelis taking part in any football.
Full stop.
UEFA must ban them. Yeah. Well, that's got nothing to do with safety. Also, there was a complete absence of concerns about safety throughout the entire time that pro-Palestinian marchers were calling to globalise the Intifada on the streets of Great Britain.
Yeah, so I think the government is now really working quite a lot behind the scenes to try and reverse this. So we're expecting some possible movement perhaps during the week in terms of the police perhaps trying to find a way, because that's what the Home Office wants. They want the police to find a way to make it happen and keep fans safe, which, frankly, they should be able to do.
Of course
they can draw on other forces. Like you say, with the marches, they were able to do that by drawing in other police
They policed a
help.
march that resulted in 500 arrests fairly recently. So what's the difference here? We need to leave it there. Anna, thank you very much indeed for joining me this morning. Thank you. Well, I'm going to be putting all of that to the Labour MP for Basingstoke, Luke Murphy. He's going to join me. I'm also going to be speaking to Claire Coutinho from the Tories. And as I say, Ian King, who's a maestro when it comes to crunching the numbers, is going to join me to discuss what we should look out for, any scaries in the forthcoming budget. Don't go anywhere. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Well, an unsettled picture across the central Mediterranean with heavy showers and thunderstorms and some stronger winds, but some sunshine elsewhere, especially for the Canary Islands, parts of Madeira and Spain and Portugal, with a few showers here, longer spells of rain then across parts of the central Mediterranean. Some of the rain is going to be heavy, causing some localised flooding with flashes of lightning as well and some strong winds, but there will be plenty of sunshine in between as well. We still hold on to a few showers though.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Brave.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. The Labour MP for Basingstoke, Luke Murphy, joins me now. Mr Murphy, thank you very much for joining me. I'm glad you can see sense and speak to GB News, even though Ed Miliband is unwilling to. Let's get straight stuck in then to this situation involving these Maccabi Tel Aviv fans not being able to go to Villa Park for this match. The Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said he has done everything in his power to keep Jews safe in the UK, and yet they're not safe, are they? Because they can't go to a football match.
Well, I'm clear and the government is clear. And, well, firstly, thank you for having me on this morning.
Thank you.
I'm clear and the government is clear that they want these fans to be able to attend the football match. No one, I think, would want to see a situation where fans of either side, of any background, not being able to attend a football match. So we do need to see a way through to ensure that the police are able to provide them with the safety so they can go ahead and see their football team play, just as many fans do across the country over the weekend and midweek as well. We should be clear, this was an operational decision, and I can't say that I'm aware of all the factors that have gone into that decision, but what the government is doing is working, my understanding is working with the police to ensure that it does have the support to provide that protection. Everyone should have the ability, we should have the policing resources and support to ensure that everyone is safe, is both safe on the streets and and also able to see their football team play as well. I'm really clear, I want them to go ahead and be able to watch their football team play.
Yes. Do you think it is all about safety when it comes to some of the pro-Gaza MPs that have lobbied for this? Zara Sultana of your party, if it is called your party, we're still not quite clear on that, has basically said this is about, for her, the idea of banning Israelis from all football matches. She's lobbying UEFA to ban any Israeli team from football matches. That's got nothing to do with safety, has it, Luke Murphy?
Yeah, and I think she's wrong. And for those viewers at home that don't know, your party is the name of her party rather than.
Sorry, I mean that. Yes.
Yeah. No. I just it's a very confusing political name for a political party. Let's be honest. And I think she's wrong. I think she's totally wrong. And I've seen some of the other statements, and I think they are totally wrong as well. This was a purely, from what I understand, operational decision around safety. The government is now providing the support to ensure that the fans, and I want to see that decision reversed and changed, hopefully as early as possible this week, yes, so those fans are able to see them. I think Zara and the other MPs who've made those statements are completely wrong.
Also, we now discover, according to the Mail on Sunday, that the West Midlands Police relied upon a report that was written by somebody who was once a member of Hezbollah and who posed with an AK-47. How worried are you about sectarianism? It's already in our politics. We've already got a number of pro-Gaza and independents who actually unseated a number of your colleagues, one of whom we're going to speak to, because we're going to speak later on to Khaled Mahmood, who was the MP for Birmingham Parry-Bar for 23 years. Sectarianism in politics, which is leading to this racial tension, as far as I can tell, between Muslims and Jews in the UK, is really worrying, isn't it, Mr. Murphy?
I'm very worried about the divisive path that some of our politics is going down, whether that's hate against Jewish people and anti-Semitism or anti-Muslim hate as well. I think we have and always have had a really strongly diverse nation that has always welcomed people from all backgrounds, and I think it is a worrying path to go down where you see on the extremes using this kind of divisive language that calls fear and calls hate, and I think it's wrong. And I think we have a task, all politicians actually, of all political parties. This isn't just about the government, though the government obviously plays an absolutely key role in doing this, in rebuilding those kind of common bonds. You know, we've heard the saying, we all have more in common. I do truly believe that, and we all need to work doubly hard to ensure that we can work together with whatever faith you are, whatever background you're from. So yes, we have disagreements in politics, but not to foster that kind of division that can lead to hate and roads that I don't think this country or the majority of people want to go down.
Let's move on to economic matters. There's a story on the front of the Sunday Telegraph which will be music to the ears of your Basingstoke constituents, I'm sure, Luke Murphy, and that's that Tony Blair is urging Rachel Reeves to slash the 40p tax rate. Now, I don't think she's going to do it, but wouldn't it be great for the people of Basingstoke for them to pay less tax, not more, come November the 26th?
Well, I think what my constituents are worried about, and I hear it on the door week in, week out. I had several conversations last weekend with several constituents about the cost of living and the pressures that they're facing, whether it's with energy prices or food prices or anything else. And similar this weekend. But this government, what I want to see in the budget, and I know what Rachel and the government are focused on, is easing that cost of living and getting growth back in our economy. We are only going to be able to have the investment in the public services that we all rely on and that we need, invest in the security to protect our country and to ensure that people have more money in their pockets if we get growth in the economy. And that is what Rachel Reeves was on.
You can't possibly be advocating tax rises, Luke Murphy, when you won your seat in Basingstoke with a promise in the manifesto that taxes wouldn't rise for working people. You can't
I'm certainly
possibly...
not advocating.
So she mustn't put up tax, must she?
I want to see, and I know that the government is steadfast in those commitments in the manifesto to ensure that there's no increase in VAT, there's no increase in income tax or national insurance on working people and on my constituents. What I don't support, because I've heard several calls from the Conservatives, the Lib Dems and Reform to cancel our the national insurance increase that was made last year, to cancel a whole load of other taxes, and then to go further to have tens of billions of pounds of cuts in spending, as well as unfunded tax cuts like scrapping stamp duty. That is a path to a higher cost of living for my constituents.
It depends on you.
It is unfunded tax cuts that led to interest rates rising.
It does depend on your definition of a working person. Am I a working person?
Well, the working people, the people that go out to work and make most of their money through work rather than from capital.
So you're ruling out a working person like me. You're saying that I won't be taxed more on November the 26th. Because we've got all sorts of suggestions, taxes on our properties, reapportioning of council tax bans, NI contributions for people who have second properties. We might have a change to the cash ISA. I mean, most working people, if they're lucky, have got a little bit of savings in a cash ISA. That might not be as tax efficient anymore under Rachel Reeves. How can you dress this up as anything other than a tax on working people?
Well, the fundamental commitment in the manifesto was around VAT, national insurance, and income tax. You know, what Rachel Reeves will do in the budget and what the government is seeking to do is to ensure that we have growth in the economy, that we provide the investment that our public services need. One of the things and one of the reasons I was elected in the general election was because our National Health Service did not have the funding that it needed. People couldn't see a GP, they couldn't get the hospital appointment. We're beginning to turn that around. Of course, this government absolutely wants to see people have more money in their pocket. And that is an absolutely central tenet of what this government is trying to achieve. But we will not do things that undermine the stability in our economy or make unfunded commitments, which previous governments have done and all of the opposition parties are now doing. And while that's a difficult choice, if you have an unfunded tax cut that you cannot pay for, that undermines the economy and will lead to increase in interest rates, which is we saw had a massive impact on my constituents over the last few years.
All right. Luke Murphy, we're running out of time, so I just need a yes-no answer to the following two questions. Knowing what we now know about Chinese spying, should the super embassy in London go ahead? Yes or no?
Well, you tempt me with a yes or no question. It's absolutely right. The government must consider the security implications of the embassy, and I know the government will be considering that.
All right. If Keir Starmer is found to have misled the Commons, as Kemi Badenoch has suggested, he'll have to resign, won't he?
I don't believe that he has. I think it's really clear the China situation that I set out. It was an independent decision made by the CPS, and Kemi Badenoch has questions to answer. When she was asked at the time of the case, she said, she was asked, is China an enemy? She said it's a challenge. Asked whether it was a security threat, she said they're a challenge. This is all about the Conservatives' policy about China the time, which they are now trying to rewrite.
Luke Murphy, thank you very much indeed for joining me this morning. Very much appreciated. Coming up next, I'm going to be speaking to the Shadow Energy Secretary, Claire Coutinho. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
There's 2 weeks remaining in our latest, greatest giveaway. You could be in the driving seat of this Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxurious home from home comes with all the mod cons. Plus, you can use it with your current driving licence. We'll also boost your bank account with a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. It only takes one entry to become a winner. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Two guests we're very happy to see all the time, Patrick Christys and Emily Carver, husband and wife, and their new little product, little baby George. Peter Alexander.
Close enough. Close enough. We won't quibble about the order. Yeah, this is baby George.
Congratulations, the two of you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And what sort of birth was it, Emily?
The traditional way.
Was it easy?
I was induced a little bit early because they were worried that maybe he was measuring a little small, so they wanted to get him out, which did mean that it was very, very painful indeed. But I did finally get an epidural towards the end.
How much did you weigh? Sorry, I was going to say.
6.5 pounds.
Yeah,
so a little one.
Honestly, I was in awe of Emily. She basically did all of it on 2 paracetamol until right at the end. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah, but that wasn't because I wanted to. That's because the epidural took a while to arrive.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, to watch and just to be there, really. I felt very sorry for you, obviously, but, you know, it was...
But the staff were amazing. I had 3 midwives all sort of cheering me on. Push, push, push.
And you?
And, of course, him.
I was just,
and my mother.
I was supervising.
You were supervising.
I was supervising.
So, how have you two taken to to being parents? I mean, there you were leading this life, you know, and then little George comes along. Have you taken to it easily, or have you surprised yourselves? Or
I think we've been quite natural with it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's still.
I mean, as natural as you can be. I mean, not to toot our own horns, but I think it's going pretty well.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning and welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show here on GB News. Lots more still to come this morning. Shadow Energy Secretary Claire Coutinho will be here. What is the Conservatives' plan to get energy bills under control should they take power again? There's a small chance, let's be honest. And what's her reaction to a poll out this week that puts the Tories on 7 seats? As I say, it's a small chance, but it's still a chance. I'm also going to be joined by the business journalist and presenter Ian King. Can the people of Britain really withstand higher taxes that are set to come in the budget? And what does a working person mean anyway? Prince Andrew has relinquished all of his royal titles amid what he and the King have called the ongoing distraction caused by his association with Jeffrey Epstein. Author of Charles III, The Inside Story, and Daily Mail journalist Robert Hardman will be here. And former Labour MP for Birmingham Perry Barr, Khaled Mahmood, will discuss with me the ban on Israeli football fans from Villa Park. But before all that, here's your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Hello there, good morning to you from the GB Newsroom. Aaron Armstrong here. Further damaging reports about Prince Andrew have emerged after he gave up his remaining royal titles on Friday. 2 newspapers are reporting that in 2011, Andrew asked his police protection officer to obtain personal information for a smear campaign against his sexual assault accuser, Virginia Giuffre, just before an infamous photograph of them was published. He denies all allegations. Meanwhile, reports claim Prince William will take a ruthless approach towards Andrew when he is king by banning him and his ex-wife from all aspects of royal life, including William's future coronation. The ongoing revelations come ahead of the posthumous publication of Miss Giuffre's memoir. Journalist Rob Crilly, who's seen an advance copy, says Andrew insisted on a gagging order to avoid spoiling the Queen's Jubilee.
Writes, I agreed to a 1-year gag order which seemed important to the Prince because it ensured that his mother's Platinum Jubilee would not be tarnished any more than it already had been. Can you imagine if this case had proceeded and you got different members of the Duke of York's family, as he was then, he's been stripped of that title of course, trooping in to legal offices, each being asked these terrible questions? There would have been a succession, there would have been headline after headline after headline, all at the time we're supposed to be celebrating her extraordinary reign.
The US says it has credible evidence Hamas is planning an imminent attack on civilians in Gaza that would violate the ceasefire agreement. US officials haven't provided further detail or explained how this would be a breach of the agreement. Although violent clashes between Hamas and armed gangs have occurred since the ceasefire came into force, Hamas has rejected the US claim as false. Meanwhile, Israel's confirmed one of the 2 sets of remains handed over to the Red Cross in Gaza on Saturday are those of Ronan Engel. The identity of the second person has yet to be announced. Just 11 of 28 deceased hostages have been returned so far by Hamas. New details in the Chinese espionage case have emerged after one of its suspects was allegedly found with cash in his suitcase on his return from China. Christopher Berry, on the right of your screen, was carrying £4,000 when he was stopped by police at Heathrow under terrorism laws in 2023. The Times is reporting he was given the money by his Chinese intelligence handler, known only as Alex. Finally, the funeral of the beloved cricket umpire Dickie Bird will be held later in his hometown of Barnsley. Harold Dennis, OBE, died on the 22nd of September at the age of 92. The ceremony will take place at 2 o'clock this afternoon at St Mary's Church. All will be welcome, and it will be followed by a private family-only cremation. Those are your headlines. Much more coming up for you at 11 o'clock.
Thank you very much to Aaron Armstrong, not Bethany Elsey. As I said before, the auto cue wasn't updated for a last-minute shift change. I do apologise. Now joining me is Shadow Energy Secretary Claire Coutinho. Lovely to see you this morning, Ms Coutinho. Let's talk about our sky-high energy bills. Now, we've had energy bosses saying that net zero will continue to add up to £300 to household bills by the end of this Parliament. And I'm starting to think, I don't know what you think, that because of the failure of successive governments on this issue, that we must just make ourselves immune to the idea of paying the highest energy costs in Europe.
Well, here's the problem. The Climate Change Act is forcing ministers to prioritise decarbonisation above everything else, including lowering bills. And that's a massive problem for the country, because at the moment we have some of the cleanest electricity in the world, but it's also the most expensive. So we've been very clear. You know, I acknowledge in the past that we signed up to legislation. Obviously, when I was in government, I started a reset, and Kemi Badenoch had spoken up before. But we have to go further. We have to repeal the Climate Change Act. We have to put cheaper energy first. And actually what you've seen from us in the last couple of weeks is I've set out a cheap power plan that would cut everybody's electricity bills by 20% instantly. That's something that ministers could do tomorrow, and it would deal with the most important problem that we've got in energy policy, which is that we've got the highest electricity prices in the world.
I understand this whole argument that you're under new management and things have changed and all the rest of it, and I do respect that. You did once tweet, "We are fully committed to net zero by 2050, and then we look at the history of high standing charges and also very heavy green levies that have added to our bills. You know, net zero was made legally binding by Theresa May. Boris Johnson then introduced the memorandum on fracking. We then had, before that, David Cameron hugging Huskies, coming out with his coal phase-out policy. We've had huge amounts of green levies placed on our bills. So it's all very well saying this now, but the GB News audience will rightly blame the Tories for part of this mess that we now find ourselves in. That is a fair criticism, isn't it?
Well, look, I don't deny the party's been on a journey. What I will say is that when that legislation was passed by Theresa May, I wasn't in Parliament then, but Kemi Badenoch was one of two people in the entirety of Parliament who spoke up and said, I'm worried about costs. When I came in to be Energy Secretary, you mentioned that tweet, but that's also in the context of me being the first person in that job to push back bans on consumers, on their cars and their boilers, to say I was very worried about costs. And actually, I was being sued by multiple climate change activists for the changes I made. So you can argue that we didn't go far enough in government, but certainly what I did at the time was controversial. And actually what's happened since then is the cost of energy work I started in the department to look at the true cost of renewables has been cancelled by Ed Miliband, and he has been promising people that he will cut their bills by £300, and we just know that is not true. In fact, I think you mentioned energy bosses this week said it's a barefaced lie. There is no evidence that he's ever published to stack up that claim. It is a barefaced lie. And actually what energy bosses said just this week in Parliament is that even if gas was free, people's energy bills would go up because of all of the extra costs in Ed's plans. Now, that's just not right. We know people are struggling, and we know that they're particularly struggling with energy bills. So that's why our plan would cut people's electricity bills by 20%. And like I said, the government could do that tomorrow.
OK. I mean, where do you now stand on fossil fuels? Because, again, I refer back to David Cameron and others. There was this Tory project to phase out fossil fuels. You're now beginning to regret that. You've been very critical of Miliband cancelling those new licences for North Sea oil and gas. We're now apparently at the kind of precipice of an AI revolution. That's going to need to be fuelled literally by a huge amount of fossil fuels for it to maintain the aspirations of the current government. So where are we? Are you now in the kind of zone of drill, baby, drill?
Well, firstly, I was like that in government. I was the person legislating to protect North Sea oil and gas licences and was very clear that I thought the North Sea was important because we're going to need oil and gas for decades. I was also the person in government who said we need to build gas power plants, and I particularly mentioned AI and the needs of that energy sector. Now, that was a speech and a position that, you know, within the civil service I was told not to take because it would make me a pariah, and I made it anyway because the truth is this: we can either be a poor country with very high electricity prices who won't won't have affected climate change because these AI businesses will just set up somewhere else in the world, or we can grip the problem that we have, which is very, very high energy prices, and we can make sure that businesses can start here, that we can have jobs, and that people's bills can come down.
Will the Tories advocate fracking?
So I don't think it should be imposed on communities, and I think the priority has to be the North Sea. But what we've said when it comes to gas is that, yes, there would be more gas in the system than under Ed's approach if it made people's bills lower. And we know at the moment, gas without a carbon tax is £55. He's signing up to a new wind auction. He said he's willing to pay up to £117 for 20-year fixed contracts for offshore wind. What he hasn't explained to anyone is what are these higher prices, which will be locked into for decades. How on earth can that cut bills? It simply doesn't make sense. So our priority for energy is use what's cheap. We've got to bring the cost of electricity down, and the priority has to be to do that as quickly as possible.
We would put all this to Ed Miliband, by the way, but he refuses to do my show for some reason. I can't think why. What's your analysis of the Chinese spying scandal in the context of Miliband's energy policy? Because, of course, Labour have come under heavy scrutiny because of the use of wind turbines, electric vehicles and solar panels, which all require components from China. Serious concerns raised by your colleague Ian Duncan-Smith and others about the use of slave labour to make those parts that we're all apparently adopting over here to be more progressive. Is there a link to the Chinese spying scandal in Miliband's relationship with Beijing?
Well, firstly, let me say this. Keir Starmer said that there was no political involvement, but if you look at the text, there's lines that have been lifted from the Labour manifesto. So either he's misled the House, or something which is possibly even worse still, everybody knew about this and politicians didn't get involved, even though this was a case about people spying on Britain for China. So, I mean, I think they're in a real muddle over this. And just to come back to your question, yes, Ed went to Beijing, and unlike all of the times that I did deals with other countries, he has not published the full text of what was agreed. And that is something which I think is incredibly worrying, this air of sort of secrecy around the Labour Party's dealings with China. And I've spoken again very publicly multiple times about the worry that we are building a reliance on China when it comes to our energy system, whether it's solar panels or critical minerals or batteries or cables. We've just seen a position where Europe had to wean itself off Russian oil and gas. We can't then become dependent on China for all of those things. So yes, we have to care very deeply. It's one of the reasons that I'm such a big advocate of nuclear power, because actually we can own and build a lot of the supply chain here. So
I know,
it is
but
very
you could have
important
done
that
nuclear
we
years
understand
ago.
who is a threat to this country.
You could have done nuclear years ago.
So
You're in partnership with Nick Clegg. Nick Clegg's like, oh, we can't do nuclear because it's going to take too long. But anyway, hang on, I want to move on to another question. Well, when it comes to the Prime Minister misleading the Commons, why don't you all put your money where your mouth is and call for his resignation? If you're saying he's lied to the House of Commons, the Prime Minister must resign.
Well, so we have put those questions to Keir. I'm sure there'll be many unhappy at my side to call for the Prime Minister to resign.
Well, will you?
But I don't think that's the challenge. But we have put those questions. Well, I think he needs to be clear about what's happened. And the thing about misleading the House is it's somehow become, under this Labour government, a very trivial thing to do. But it's not. It's a serious matter. And what he's tried to turn this China case into is some sort of political tussle. And it's not. It's a question of national security. And like I said, either he's misled the House because there was political involvement and he's told the House there wasn't, or something which is possibly even worse, is that politicians were aware that this case was going to collapse and they didn't get involved.
OK, so the Prime Minister needs to consider his position very seriously.
Well, I think if he's lied to the House, then yes.
OK, and then on to your own matters. This mega poll putting the Tories on 7 seats. It puts Labour on 3rd place behind the Liberal Democrats, but it suggests that at the next general election, you will be reduced from 121 MPs to 7. Claire Coutinho, how has it come to this?
Well, look, the point of opposition is not only to scrutinise the government, but it's also to look at where you went wrong, and that is the work that's being done. So, one of the things I think that we got wrong, and I've said that very publicly, is we signed up to net zero legislation that we shouldn't have. One of the other areas which Kemi has set out very clearly is we want to back the strivers and the aspirational people in this country. That's why she set out plans to abolish business rates on the high street. That's why she set out plans to cut stamp duty so that people can have an easier time trying to own their home. So the work that we have to do is to look at where we went wrong, and the duty of us, I think, as the Conservative Party, is to make sure that at the next election there is a party on the ballot that people can vote for who are strong on the economy and also strong on borders, and that is what we will work to be.
All right, Claire Coutinho, thank you very much indeed for joining me on my GB News show this morning. Competing there with a little bit of choral music in the background outside the BBC building. Now, coming up, business journalist and presenter Ian King is going to join me as we assess the Chancellor's choices at the autumn budget. Brace yourselves. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Brave.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Business journalist and presenter Ian King joins me now to talk about all things money-related, the budget coming on November the 26th. How worried should we be, Ian?
Well, the Office for Budget Responsibility has given its initial report to the Chancellor. We don't know what's in it, but the expectation is that there's been a big downgrade in productivity expectations, and that essentially affects the tax take. So if the Chancellor is to stick to her fiscal rules. The expectation is that somewhere between 20 and 30 billion pounds is going to be the number. That's the shortfall. That is what she's going to have to make up via fiscal consolidation. What does that mean in practice? Either tax increases or spending cuts.
And they're not going to cut spending, are they?
Well, the spending envelope is actually pretty tight already. Bear in mind that they've got, there are ring-fenced departments like the NHS. You've got defence, where the government is committed clearly to making big spending increases. That leaves a lot of tightness everywhere else. For example, the Justice Department, the court system, and we know the court system is already buckling after years and years of spending cuts that date all the way back to George Osborne and the early days of the coalition government. And you've got this backlog in the courts due to the pandemic as well.
All gummed up. It's taken months to get any traction there.
And then you've got things like, the benefits bill is clearly the big ticket item.
Yes.
On the current trajectory, sickness benefits are going to hit £100 billion by the end of this Parliament. And we saw earlier in the year the government struggled to get a £5 billion package of cuts through. That wouldn't have actually eaten into the benefits bill. It would have simply slowed down the rate at which it's rising. It wouldn't really touch
the sides. It was amazing. We had this giant debate about, frankly, something so piffling.
Yeah.
So you're saying spending constraints are already there and it's very difficult for a Labour government to cut more because then she'll be accused of austerity. She made that point last week, didn't she? She made two admissions. Yes, we're going to have to consider having a look at taxes. Oh, red alert. Second of all, we don't want to go back to austerity. One woman's austerity is another person's efficiency savings, but they have it. What I don't quite understand about the fiscal discipline argument is, but hasn't borrowing gone up under her watch anyway? So why is she claiming to be fiscally disciplined?
Well, it has. The second biggest single item of government spending right now is interest payments on the national debt. It's servicing the national debt. The point is, you want to try and balance the budget. That is the aim of her fiscal rules by the end of this Parliament. Now, there are all sorts of ways around. Gordon Brown was a sort of past master at fiddling his fiscal rules, and he'd basically just changed the duration of the cycle. He'd say within this current cycle, and then he'd change the dates on it.
The goalposts, basically.
It was like Find the Lady. But I think in fairness to Rachel Reeves, she has shown real adherence to maintaining fiscal discipline in terms of keeping to her fiscal rules. That's very, very important to her. So I think that, in all honesty, does mean probably higher taxes.
Yes. Now, in what form? Because we heard Luke Murphy earlier, the Labour MP for Basingstoke, saying, no, we are sticking to the manifesto pledge of not raising taxes on working people. Of course, Labour don't seem to think that people who employ people are working people. Apparently, these bosses are just swanning around, not doing a day's work. So they're doing this whole thing of saying, well, if income tax, VAT and national insurance doesn't go up for individuals, then we've stuck to the manifesto. But what's your suspicion as to what will really happen?
Well, I think one absolute given, you've already had this freeze in income tax thresholds. First of all, that was Rishi Sunak that did that to add to 2026. Reeves has extended it to 2028. You extend that by another couple of years, that banks you probably easily 10 billion on its own.
Right. Fiscally dragging head teachers, doctors, nurses, middle managers into a higher tax band than they should be paying, frankly.
And in your interview with Luke Murphy, you referenced Tony Blair saying that the 40p tax rate, the threshold needs to be changed. But I don't think that's going to happen. So, that's an absolute given. There are other things that she can do. The Institute for Fiscal Studies put out this big piece last week laying out some of the policy options. One thing I'd be quite interested in is the definition of VAT. Now, the UK's VAT regime is very, very narrow compared with a lot of our peers in continental Europe, for example. There are all sorts of things that are zero rated. Children's clothes, for example.
Yes.
Now, that would obviously be pretty explosive if you start levying VAT on children's clothes.
Well, it'd be ridiculous. On one hand, you're brushing their teeth and offering them breakfast in the morning, and the next you're making their clothes more expensive.
Exactly. But if you look at countries like France and Germany, even they have a VAT rate on children's clothes to some extent. It may be negligible. I think the only major European economy that doesn't do that is the Republic of Ireland. So that is something potentially you could look at. You could look at an extra VAT band on luxury goods, for example. We had that in the 70s, and but
there'd been such a backlash from the hospitality and retail industry in London against the tourist tax. This idea that you can go to Rome and buy a Gucci belt for much less than you could buy it in London, and how disadvantageous that is to us from a tourism point of view.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about this growth rate. I think it's interesting that the Chancellor keeps on holding on to this idea that in Q1 or the first half of this year, our growth rate was the best in the G7.
Yeah.
Still not great, is it, Ian?
Well, I think there were very specific factors there. You had a lot of front-loading of businesses right around the world in anticipation of Trump's tariffs. You saw a lot of American importers buying in inventory. So for UK manufacturers that export to the United States, car manufacturers, aircraft components manufacturers, the Americans were buying that stuff in anticipation of Trump's tariffs. So I think that flattered the first quarter GDP for an extent. There's also a bit of a trend here. I mean, this happened in 2024 as well. The UK shot out of the blocks in early 2024. We were the fastest growing economy then.
Saying this as well.
Yeah, so there is something funny about the UK in that respect. The numbers for next year and the year after, we obviously had an IMF forecast published this week. Slight upgrade for next year, slight downgrade the year after. I mean, it still puts the UK ahead of everyone else in the G7 apart from Canada.
I know, but there's not much competition, is there? France, 0.9, Germany, 0.9, Italy, 0.8. We're on 1.3.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing to write home about, is it? When you compare growth rate in America, 2.1 for 2026 forecast.
Yeah, you're basically the second least ugly person.
And why do you think it is that inflation in the UK is higher than all of those aforementioned countries? The inflation forecast 2025, we're 3.4%. Nearest competitors, Japan on 3.3, US on 2.7, etc.
Well, a lot of these are regulatory issues. A lot of these are made by the government and by regulators. I mean, a good example there would be the fact that water bills are going to be going up under the latest Ofwat rulings.
That's another thing we need to pay more for, Ian.
You were talking to Claire Coutinho earlier about household energy bills. I mean, we have all these policy costs. There was all of the energy bosses were in front of the MPs last week, and they all said wholesale energy prices could halve from here and bills would remain the same because we have all these policy costs, some of which, the feed-in tariffs and the green levies and so forth. All of that is a cost. All of that feeds into inflation. VAT on school fees. Again, that had an inflationary impact. So you have all these measures. And you have also there is stickiness in the UK economy anyway. If you look at wages inflation, I mean, wages right now, we get the inflation figures next week. We'll get a readout of probably about 4% for September. That, by the way, has all sorts of implications for the spending envelope because the September inflation figure is what dictates the rise in the state pension.
If you give public sector workers more money for less productivity, it's going to be inflationary, one assumes. Take us inside the square mile. Another remark that the Chancellor made last week, which prompted cries of incredulity from some of the high net worth sector, let's put it that way, was this idea that she suggested that the millionaires' exodus had been overstated. We had that one kind of killer report which suggested that a millionaire was leaving every 45 minutes under Labour. But I speak anecdotally to people in the city, and they say, yes, people are leaving in their droves. They're going to Italy, where they've got much more favourable tax rates. Yeah,
I mean, Italy has rolled out the red carpet to the wealthy. You now have a flat rate of income tax. Basically, if you go to Italy and you're well off, you will pay €200,000 in a flat tax to them, and that's it. There'll be no other taxation on all of your global earnings. Now, there's a report in one of the newspapers this weekend suggests that Italy is going to raise that to €300,000. But even so, that makes it a very attractive place for someone wealthy from, say, the UK to go and base themselves. And I mean, we'll have to wait and see what the OBR says. She's obviously seen something in the OBR's report that caught her eye there. But again, there's another report out today which the Sunday Times is quoting from another consultant who says, well, we don't really know what sort of people are leaving. She's probably looking at the income tax take and saying, well, the income tax take doesn't seem to have fallen very dramatically. The point is the sort of people who are leaving are not necessarily people who are paying income tax.
No.
These are investors.
They're people who employ people who pay income tax.
So
if they're taking their businesses abroad, Ian, what can you do? Ian King, thank you very much indeed for joining me. We're just cutting it a little bit short because we've got some breaking news in this hour. An Israeli military official has claimed that Hamas has carried out multiple attacks attacks against Israeli forces beyond the Yellow Line. Tel Aviv has said that Hamas has violated the ceasefire agreement. This, of course, all comes after US President Donald Trump helped to orchestrate a 20-point Gaza peace plan that was signed last week. We're going to keep you up to date with that breaking news throughout the day. Goodness me, it didn't take long, did it, for this ceasefire to be broken? But we will be continuing to report on that on GB News. Up next, the author of Charles III, The Inside Story, and Daily Mail journalist Robert Hardman joins me to discuss the latest Prince Andrew scandal. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Low pressure now starting to dominate our weather pattern. Outbreaks of rain pushing north and eastward, some pretty brisk winds as well, but still on the mild side for the time of year. Wet start across western parts this morning. Heavy rain across Northern Ireland. A warning in force here for some localised flooding as we head through the morning. The rain slowly pushing north and eastwards through the day. So some eastern areas having a dry morning, but the rain reaching here by the afternoon. At the same time, sunny spells starting to follow in across some western parts. A pretty blustery day, gales around some western coasts, but mild with the winds coming in from the south. Temperatures around 13 to 15 Celsius. Into the evening time, the rain continues to push north and eastward, so a wet end to the day across much of Scotland. After a dry period across Aberdeenshire, the rain soon moving in here. Pretty windy too. Temperatures around 11 to 13 Celsius. But some sunshine moving in after a wet morning. Early afternoon across Northern Ireland here. Some scattered showers for Wales and the West Country, but wet across the Midlands. Eastwards into East Anglia, the London area, seeing some outbreaks of rain in places too. And then through the early hours, the rain pushes out into the North Sea, and then the low pressure itself starts to move in closer. So we see bands of heavy showers pushing in across the west, some rumbles of thunder possible during the early hours. But it will keep temperatures up, a lot of cloud around, some strong winds developing, particularly in the southwest, the temperatures for most staying in double figures. So Monday, dominated by low pressure, we'll see outbreaks of heavy showery rain pushing north and eastwards, particularly across England and Wales. Best of the drier, sunnier weather across central and northern parts of mainland Scotland, but rain still affecting Orkney and Shetland, only slowly clearing here. Blustery winds, particularly along the south coast, some gales possible, and temperatures generally around 14 to 15 Celsius. See you soon.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Welcome back. The author of Charles III, The Inside Story, and the Daily Mail journalist Robert Hardman joins me now. Lovely to see you this morning, Robert. Goodness me, it's been a busy few days for us royal watchers, hasn't it? How significant, just sum up historically how significant the announcement that Prince Andrew made on Friday actually is, that he's relinquishing his titles and is effectively now going to, I don't know, become some kind of private citizen with no royal ties at all?
Yeah, I mean, it is, I think, very significant. I think it's significant for the Duke, ex-Duke, of course. I think we have to go back to 2019. By the way, his statement, I'm not sure about his maths, because in his statement he talked about how he stepped back from public duties 5 years ago, but it was actually 6 years ago. It was 2019, November, when that happened. And I think this is the most significant statement since then. I think also it's significant, you know, the King has made a decisive decision. It can't have been easy.
No.
I think it's one of the the most interesting decisions perhaps of this reign. But it's quite clear that the institution comes first, family second. I think the Duke was basically given an ultimatum. It's either we can do this the nice way or the hard way, and if you don't relinquish your titles and honours, then we will take them away. And that would have taken us into really pretty awkward territory, because Parliament would have to get involved to strip him of his dukedom. And as for stripping him of Knight of the Garter, I mean, that involves a rather spectacular and very messy medieval ceremony called degradation. I think the last time it was 1716 when the Garter banner was torn down and kicked into the gutter. The only other time Garter knights have been expunged from the order was because they were actually on the enemy sides in 2 world wars, the last one being Emperor Hirohito of Japan. Now, whatever we say about the Duke of York, one thing we can't accuse him of is treachery or fighting for the other side. He's fought very honourably for his nation, and he thus far has not turned on his family or the institution, hasn't written any embarrassing books. So,
well, there's still time, Robert, there's still time. What do you think was the final nail in the coffin? Because we've got yet more lurid allegations in your sister paper today, the Mail on Sunday, and others, talking about how Epstein bankrolled Fergie, talking about the fact that he put pressure via his own taxpayer-funded bodyguard to try and smear Virginia Roberts-Giuffre, who is one of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's main accusers. She's deceased now. She died by suicide back in April. Obviously, this memoir is being published posthumously next week. Do you think it was just in anticipation of the memoir, or was it the revelation that he had maintained that friendship with Epstein after he said he hadn't to Emily Maitlis? What do you think was the sort of final straw for the king?
Well, it's interesting. What was the final straw? I mean, clearly this was an accumulation of factors on two fronts. One was the ever louder drip, drip, drip of accusations. And I do think last weekend's Mail on Sunday article, which produced an email, which frankly drove a coach and horses through that Newsnight interview from 2019, because it made it quite clear that when the Duke, ex-Duke, said, he'd severed connections with Jeffrey Epstein in 2010, that was not the case. I think that was a major factor. Then all week we had further, the usual round of sort of Prince Andrew headlines, not least that he was linked to the in some way to the collapsed parliamentary spy case. So on the one hand, you've got the Andrew accusations coming through. On the other factor is the distraction, the fact that there were major royal events last week and they simply weren't even getting airtime. I mean, the King embracing Indigenous leaders from Australia, the King announcing that he's off to Rome to pray with the Pope. I mean, no British monarch, no Supreme Governor of the Church of England has knelt and prayed with the Pope in public, I think ever, but certainly not since Henry VIII. I mean, that should be a very important matter, something the King cares about deeply. And it just, it wasn't breaking through because of the Wall of Andrew noise. Now, I mean, the Andrew allegations are not going to go away, I imagine, in the next few days, because this is the big news. They are going to carry on. But in time, they will subside. They're not going to be any less sensational because he's not called the Duke of York. But I think what people do understand is that, they really do have nothing to do with the King and the working unit of the royal family who are just trying to get on with the job.
So does that mean then, Robert, just to clarify, we shouldn't expect to see Andrew or Sarah Ferguson at any royal events, both sort of state occasions or indeed private ones, in the sense of recently, for instance, they attended the Duchess of Kent's funeral. It wasn't a state funeral, it was a royal funeral. We shouldn't expect to see them, but that their daughters, Princess Beatrice and Eugenie, may still be included in royal family affairs, for instance, Christmas at Sandringham.
Yeah, I think we certainly, my understanding is that a very key part of this, of the King's sort of planning, was that this should not somehow involve, ripping up the birthright and titles of Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, for whom the king has a great deal of affection and love, and I think actual admiration for what they've been through and come out the other side. So no, that I don't think they'll be affected. But yes, there's no question that the king has made it clear that Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, as we now call her, will not be with the royal family at Christmas. That then moves us forward to, well, when will we next see them? He does like turning up at Easter. It's one of the family occasions when he's very fond of striding down through the castle. I suspect he'll be asked to stay away from that. I mean, you can't obviously tell someone to stay away from church. It's a public place, so we'll see. Then the only other thing will be royal weddings and funerals. I think even his harshest critics would have to acknowledge you can't stop somebody from attending the funeral of a loved one.
Yes. But, I mean, it would be great if he could just attend funerals and other events without making himself centre stage. We've just been playing out, while you've been speaking, Robert, that extraordinary footage of him at the Duchess of Kent's funeral, where he's trying to talk to Prince William, the Prince of Wales. William's having none of it. I was told on Friday that Prince William's fingerprints will have been all over this, that he has got no truck with his errant uncle. And it poses difficulties for Andrew moving forward because, of course, the Prince of Wales and the Princess of Wales live on the Windsor Great Park estate. So does Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. They're in Royal Lodge. It's a 30-room house. He's holding on to this property for dear life. But I think there's going to be a growing clamour for them both to be evicted from that place.
Well, it's certainly, as is the nature of news, it doesn't like a vacuum. So we very quickly moved on. He's lost his titles. Right, what should he lose next? And I think there's a lot of growing opinion focusing around the house. I mean, yes, the shots you just showed there of that was the funeral of the Duchess of Kent, where we saw, the Duke of York just showing, I think, a sort of a remarkable lack of tact. Marching around in front of the cameras when, frankly, the best place would have been to stand at the back and not look for airtime, as it were. But that's I think that's the sort of what we're dealing with. But in terms of the house, well, he does have a lease on that house, as you and I know, Camilla. I mean, and leasehold law. I mean, he has every much right to stay in that house, as we all do if we own a property, either freehold or leasehold. The one area where there would be grounds for eviction is if he can't maintain either the maintenance bills or the security bills, because that house does come with a certain degree of, it's got to be kept in good condition and it's got to be kept safe. At the moment, he's footing those bills himself. But if suddenly, the roof starts to cave in, there aren't any guards, you start getting graffiti or whatever, then that would be grounds for the Crown Estate, and it is a Crown Estate property. It's not the sort of King's grace and favour. It's not for the King to say, but then the Duke would be in breach of the terms of his lease, and he would be turfed out. Where he goes then is a very good question. But the other issue I'm hearing a lot about is, well, why is he still called Prince? He has had everything he has received in terms of honours since he was born, but I mean that was how he came into this world. And again, I think we have to keep a slight degree of context and nuance here, because however much people might dislike him, to take away the title of Prince. I mean, the last time that happened was involving, as I say, enemies of this country fighting at war. Now, he's not in that category. So I think, if he could possibly stay away from going for rides around the park on royal horses, that would certainly help in the days ahead.
Robert Ardman, we need to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed. just to say
Thanks,
that Prince
Camilla.
Andrew has previously and continues to deny any wrongdoing. On the accusation involving a Met police officer, Andrew declined to comment when approached by the Daily Mail. The Metropolitan Police said that they were looking into the claims. Well, coming up next, I'm going to be speaking to the former MP for Birmingham Parry Bar, Khaled Mahmood, who's going to be here to discuss the decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from Villa Park. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello. Well, an unsettled picture across the central Mediterranean with heavy showers and thunderstorms and some stronger winds, but some sunshine elsewhere, especially for the Canary Islands, parts of Madeira and Spain and Portugal, with a few showers here, longer spells of rain then across parts of the central Mediterranean. Some of the rain is going to be heavy, causing some localised flooding with flashes of lightning as well and some strong winds, but there will be plenty of sunshine in between as well. We still hold on to a few showers though.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
After Diana's tragic death, and he goes into a lot of the detail in Spare, Harry was traumatised, in denial even, and also there's no question he took to drugs and drink as a part of a panacea. He was able to find himself in the military, but there's absolutely no doubt that unquestionably changed him.
Well, I mean, both boys did go through it. I mean, like you, I covered the funeral. I stood there and watched him walk behind their mother's coffin. I mean, it did affect both boys, didn't it? But it's Harry is the one that seemed to be searching and angry more than his older brother. And so, I mean, Meghan being a mother figure, it does kind of make sense.
Well, in that sense, it conceivably could. I mean, in the Mirror, he was talking about even fantasizing, I suggest, about Diana living in California as a sort of granny figure, which I have to say, it's very hard to anticipate what would have happened, but there's absolutely no doubt that that was the catalyst, and truly, truly tragic.
Yeah, of course it was. It was horrible, and it's a horrific thing to happen to two young boys like that. What do you think Meghan would make of this comment that she is a mother figure to her husband?
Well, I think that she would appreciate the fact that of the two of them, she is very definitely the dominant figure. That is definitely what comes across, and that is the way most people interpret the way their relationship. And I mean, I think they're still in love. I think that the relationship on the whole is working very well. It's hard to be precise because the net is flooded with rumours, as you know, about everything.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Up next on GB News is Sunday with Michael Portillo. Michael's over in our Paddington studio. What's coming up on the show today?
Good morning, Camilla. I'm going to be asking whether it looks as though we're going to the next general election with none of the parties, including Reform, promising actually to stop the boats with immigrants arriving. We too will be thinking about Prince Andrew. Alexander Larman from The Spectator is going to cast his baleful eye over the prince. Should the remake of Amadeus have a multi-ethnic cast? Amadeus was about Mozart and other composers in 18th century Vienna. The remake for Sky will have a multi-ethnic cast, is that right? And there's a restaurant in London called Benares. It's an Indian restaurant. It's Michelin starred. It's had a remake. And naturally, the head chef is coming in to talk to me about it.
Are you going to be trying food again in my absence? This is so wrong on so many levels.
I'm not entirely sure in this case. My palate is absolutely titillated at the moment, but I'm not quite sure whether that's going to happen.
I can imagine. And let me ask you something just about this Prince Andrew saga, because you've witnessed a few scandals in your time working in politics for all of the time that you did. And quite a few people say to me, why didn't he just do a Profumo? Why didn't he try and redeem himself through the medium of quiet, charitable work? But I sort of now think, with everything that's been reported today and yet more lurid headlines expected next week, that he's almost beyond a degree of public redemption. What do you think?
Yeah, in the case of John Profumo, which was 1963, there was a scandal. It involved one girl and an alleged possible breach of national security. It was over. And the rest of John Profumo's life, he spent, trying to do good works in order to get back. The problem with this is it's such a running saga, isn't it? There's more information all the time. I mean, it doesn't seem that the Prince gave a very full account of exactly everything that had happened.
Exactly.
Because many things are arising that challenge his version of events. So that's the problem.
That is the problem, and I know you're going to be discussing it on your show at 11, Michael. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Camilla.
Joining me now is former Labour MP for Perry Bar, Khaled Mahmood. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely to see you this morning. Long time no see, Khaled, because we used to hang out. We used to hang out together, didn't we, in Portcullis House and discuss the issues facing Birmingham constituents. And we've got quite the story on our hands here. This ban on Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from attending this match at Villa Park. I mean, you're so familiar with this area. The man behind it, Ayub Khan, is the man who unseated you last year. He's a pro-Gaza independent. There are others who have joined in the fray. Just what is your impression of all this?
Well, I think exactly what you said, Camilla. I think the big problem here is that you've got these people, this Gaza independent pushed very heavily nationally through the Muslim vote, and all these people who had a one agenda issue to deal with, and the discrimination that they believe in, the way that they want to treat people is what they've done. And as you say, it's him, it's a councillor that we have in the Labour Party who should have been dealt with a long time ago. And hasn't been dealt with. And these people continue to do this. There are a number of things I would have done which hasn't been done. First of all, what you do is you speak to the people. You speak to the people in the area and you see how you can support them and how you get the thing more forward. What has happened here is in reverse. Is that the MP and one of the councillors, particularly the one on the safety committee that's been there for the Villa, who more or less runs it, has deliberately gone out to put their position on that they didn't want this to happen.
Yes.
And that's where the problem is. As elected people, what the position should be is that you consult people, you support them, reassure them, and see how you can do things, not how you can stop things.
Khaled, how much do you think this is actually about anti-Israel politics as opposed to safety concerns? Zara Sultana suggesting that UEFA should ban any Israeli teams from football matches in the UK. We also have this man, Diab Abu Raja, who is involved in the Hind Rajib Foundation. He's been in the past linked to Hezbollah, photographed with an AK-47. He produced a report that is meant to have been very influential when it comes to the West Midland Police reaching this decision that both the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary oppose.
Well, the point is the West Midlands Police, again, should have taken better advice. Their job is to look at what they can do to support this event. That's what their job is. If they don't have the resources, they can go to the Home Secretary and say, Home Secretary, we need this support to be able to support this event, not how we can stop this event. And I think the pressure on the West Midlands Police, again, has been from a couple of the councillors, but particularly one individual councillor who is quite influential in all this. And secondly, the Member of Parliament, both of them, I think, who sit on the committee, but certainly we've influenced it quite significantly. And it influenced the local people against it. But still, nobody's consulted the local community. they've had lots of football matches. They've had difficult football matches. People around there have been living there for almost 60, 70 years, and they've got on with it. And this is what we should be doing, getting on with it.
Khaled, I mean, you know this area like the back of your hand. Birmingham has had such a bad press lately. The bin strikes. Robert Jenrick suggesting he saw no white faces in Handsworth. To be fair, that is borne out by the demographic data for that area. We now have a situation where it's being suggested that parts of Birmingham are no-go zones for Jews. I mean, do you agree with those analyses?
Well, I don't want to agree with some of those analyses, but unfortunately, the way some of these people have behaved, I have no choice but to understand those concerns that people have raised. And what we need to do is get back to normality, get these people out of the way and deal with it properly. I think certainly in terms of the councillor, there should be action taken by the Labour Party to deal with this. And certainly in terms of this particular individual member of Parliament, I think he should be accountable to Parliament as well. I think the Standards Board needs to look at the action that has been taken.
Are you talking about your replacement? Are you talking about Ayub Khan?
Yeah, Ayub Khan, yes.
What action should be taken against him, Khaled, briefly?
Well, basically, I think what we need to look at is whether he has incited any of this or not. And that's the key issue for the Standards Committee to have a look at, the Standards Board in Parliament to have a look at. And same applies to this councillor. You have a Standards Board, but you also have the Labour Party who should take action immediately and then allow the Standards Board to investigate this as well. And what they've both done is they've both put their position in without consulting, without asking the people how they can support them.
All right, Khaled Mahmood, we have to leave it there, but lovely to speak to you again. Thank you very much. That's the former Labour MP for Birmingham, Perry Barr. I'm going to be back in a few weeks' time and taking a bit of time up, but up next on GB News is Michael Portillo. That's coming to you after the weather. And just a final tribute, I think, to Jane, Benedict, Oliver and Cordelia, Martin Townsend's loving family. May that friend of GB News and friend to me and all journalists in Fleet Street rest in peace. Thank you very much indeed and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It's been a damp start out there for many of us this morning, but rain that we see outside at the moment will gradually clear its way eastwards. However, low pressure does remain in charge through the rest of the weekend and start of next week. Swirling around this area of low pressure, weather fronts push their way north and eastwards as we go through the rest of Sunday, and that means that area of rain that we see out there at the moment will continue to slowly move its way northeast as we go through the rest of Sunday afternoon. There will be some quite heavy downpours, quite persistent rain associated with this weather front, the heaviest rain probably across the north and the west, maybe even the odd rumble of thunder across the southwest too. And despite temperatures being around 15 or 16, perhaps even 17 degrees, with some brisk southerly winds, it won't be feeling particularly warm out there.